Hi, boys and girls. Welcome to Miss Blum's book club. We're on lesson 8, chapter 8. Glad that you are here. In this chapter, our major themes are friendship, adventure, family, and helping. So we will talk about a time that you might have helped out your family if they weren't feeling well. And also, if you felt ever frightened or brave at the same time. Before we read chapter 8, let's review chapter 7. We remember that Stuart sails in a race. He overcomes obstacles to win the race. He has made a new friend. And in this next chapter, Stuart again meets a new friend. Her name is Margallo, and she is a bird that needed help. Let's read how Stuart and his family help out a bird in need. All right. So we're going to start with chapter 8. There's no picture, but there's chapter 8. Margallo. Because he was so small, Stuart was often hard to find around the house. His father and his mother and his brother George seldom could locate him by looking for him. Usually they had to call him. And the house often echoed with cries of, "Stuart! Stuart!" You would come into a room and he might be curled up in a chair, but you wouldn't see him. Mr. Little was in constant fear of losing him and never finding him again. He even made him a tiny red cap, such as hunters wear, so that he would be easier to see. One day when he was 7 years old, Stuart was in the kitchen watching his mother make tapioca pudding. He was feeling hungry, and when Mrs. Little opened the door of the electric refrigerator to get something, Stuart slipped inside to see if he could find a piece of cheese. He supposed, of course, his mother had seen him, and when the door swung shut and he realized he was locked in, it surprised him greatly. And there is Stuart in the refrigerator. "Help," he called. "It's dark in here. It's cold in this refrigerator. Help. Let me out. I'm getting colder by the minute." But his voice was not strong enough to penetrate the thick wall. In the darkness, he stumbled and fell into a saucer of prunes. The juice was cold. Stuart shivered and his teeth chattered together. It wasn't until half an hour later that Mrs. Little again opened the door and found him standing on a butter plate, beating his arms together to try to keep warm and blowing on his hands and hopping up and down. Now here's a picture of Stuart on the next page. He's in bed. He has caught a cold. "Mercy," she cried. "Stuart, my poor little boy." "How about a nip of brandy?" said Stuart. "I'm chilled to the bone." But his mother made him some hot broth instead and put him to bed in his cigarette box with the doll's hot water bottle against his feet. Even so, Stuart caught a bad cold, and this turned into bronchitis, and Stuart had to stay in bed for almost 2 weeks. During his illness, the other members of the family were extremely kind to Stuart. Mrs. Little played tic-tac-toe with him. George made him a soap bubble pipe and a bow and arrow. Mr. Little made him a pair of ice skates out of 2 paper clips. Okay, so now it's your turn to do your independent reading. I will click on each slide so you can read. Remember to pause the video if you need more time. All right, here you go. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that chapter. It was another adventure for Stuart while he made a new friend and was helped by his family, but also helped his friend from the cat. Number one, how did Stuart get stuck in the refrigerator? And then how did his family find him? Number two, what were some things Stuart's family did to help him feel better? Number three, has there ever been a time when you needed to help out a family member or a friend who wasn't feeling well? All right, last, you got a brief summary of chapter 8. Number two on this slide was Stuart was worried about Margallo sleeping because of the cat. Do you think that Stuart was afraid of the cat, but had to be brave to make sure she was okay? Have you ever felt that way, a little frightened, but you still did what you needed to do? Write about that. And then using these words, create your own sentences. Adventure, trip, father, swimming, and dream. All right, it was good to see everybody for this chapter. I know each chapter has its own adventures and little kind of interesting points. So I hope you are enjoying the book, and I will see you next time. All right, bye-bye.